For 30 years, Byron Douglas has been the face you wake up to for your weather every morning on 14 News Sunrise. He's our featured star on this episode of Inside Look. I'm Jeff Lyons. This is Inside Look, and this is Byron Douglas. Happy 30th anniversary.
Hey, thanks, Jeff.
I haven't worked with anybody for 30 years. Have you? I mean, your whole career, I guess you wouldn't, other than maybe Dan Katz, right? Almost 30.
Yeah, but we're breaking the record. I met you, I think, at the Barbecue Fest in the early 90s, after your son Patrick was born, so I've known you ever since.
I was trying to think when we first met, and I don't remember. I thought Barbecue Fest, but can you describe that moment? Was it burned in your mind in any way?
Yeah, I was doing a live shot. I believe it was in 1993. I was still working for a cable station in Owensboro, and I met you. Of course, you couldn't have been nicer. And I always
oh, good. I was nice. I was worried.
Dan Katz would breeze by me. I say that with a little humor, but I always found 14 when I was working at the cable station, of course, with all the media that you did a wonderful job, Beleg, Jay Zimmer. I thought that station has some characters, and of course the legend of Marcia Yaki, Dan Katz, and others there as well, Ann and David. So I gravitated to the station when I first got there, and then of course when I had a chance to work. For 14, I considered that a big blessing. So.
And I remember when you first started, we had you were doing weekends here, and you were doing, so you were working 7 days a week, wasn't that right?
Yeah,
you were
for about 10 months.
Because you were on cable in Owensboro, right?
I was working, well, at that time it saved me because there was only a Sunday night.
Right.
So I'd come in, I got paid to watch football for a little bit, and then had the 10 o'clock news.
Yeah, and then weren't you finishing up at Western,
Yes,
too?
my second degree's there in meteorology.
The plate spinner on the Ed Sullivan Show.
I was spinning some plates, but it did pay off. But it was a wonderful time, but... And of course, it just was great.
I was trying to figure out, do you think we would have been friends if we'd gone to high school together?
I absolutely think so. I mean,
you're popular, though. I mean, you play golf, you can talk sports, you got everything. You're like the trifecta of a man, you know. You still got your hair, for Pete's sake.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah, well, my one grandfather passed away at 96, and he had a full head of hair, so I've been blessed there, but I'm a talker. Back when I worked in the lunchroom at Purdue, I'd get in trouble. I've worked there all 4 years. I loved talking to people, so I think there's no doubt we'd have been friends.
And see, I worked in the dining hall at IU, so we had a lot in common. What was your first job? Do you remember in high school? I mean, I know you probably mowed lawns.
Well, I worked at Kentucky Fried Chicken. We had to work. So when my first job ever was corn detasseling when I was 12, and I think he got paid $2.65 an hour.
And that's tough.
And he only got paid one. Right. I think they changed. I think DeKalb owes me some money because we would corn detassel, and my dad, he was a judge at the courthouse, and we would leave the courthouse, so he would look down to make sure that we weren't sneaking off. He was looking down there with his. Yeah, binoculars.
That's another common theme because my dad taught at the high school I went to, so there were always eyes on you. You couldn't act up,
Right.
Well, at least you could at your own peril.
He was a laid-back guy, but my parents were big. They didn't play with the work. You had to work.
Yeah,
so.
and you've got a big family, right? Are you the oldest of five? That's right. So.
Yes.
And I was thinking, when we started Inside Look here, it's just talking about random things or fun things. And I was thinking back, in your 30 years here, we've had adventures, you and I have. And one of them I wanted to reminisce about. Do you remember when we got sent to New York on 24 hours notice?
In 1996.
That's right. So we were... I don't even remember how that came about. I think Al Roker had started on the Today Show.
He just had started, and he was going to be full-time.
Okay.
In January of 1996.
And they were
all three of us are still working.
Right. So it was you, me, and then Alan Toomey, who was the weekend guy. I think we left him slumped over the controls, and off we went. I just remember finding out about it like the day before. And we had to get on a plane, and we had terrible weather that day. Remember?
Tornado warnings.
In the morning.
Right.
And then ice moving in that night.
They had to de-ice the plane.
I remember that in Evansville.
Cincinnati.
I didn't even know they did that.
It was 60 degrees.
Right.
And I was intimidated. You were less because we were doing promos with Al Roker. Brian Gumble was there. Katie Kirk was on maternity leave. And we had these lines.
Shriver, And
they said that, and they were laid back once we got there.
Yeah.
But I thought, man, I was sweating. We had these lines, and then
Well, it was kind of like that Andy Griffith episode where Andy and Barney go to Raleigh, and I don't know which of us was which character, because I was freaking out too.
But Al Roker was smart, because in one of the promos, it had 4th to 6th graders for Thunderstorm Detectives, and another had 4th to 5th. He caught it and said, let's redo. So he couldn't have been nicer.
Yeah.
Then after that, they were going to kind of just send us, and then we asked for the tour, and then somebody from NBC gave us a tour, which was just wonderful.
We kind of got the stink eye too, remember? Because we
got
were
the
like,
look.
can we go down and look at
The
the
Saturday Night Live set,
Right.
where they had the nightly news. I thought it was incredible.
Well, and you'd never been to New York, right?
No.
And I'd only been once, but I passed myself off as the expert on the Big Apple.
And your second child, I believe, was
Yeah,
born.
Justin, we were pregnant with Justin, and I told you that while we were, you're right.
Because we had a free weekend at Raycon Media, had a condo there and so we had to get back. And I was just telling someone recently, I would have sent you back, and I was staying.
Well, you think about how times have changed. That was 96, and I'm
There
thinking,
was garbage all over New York
Oh,
City
yeah.
because they had the blizzard.
that's right, and we
And
got
breakfast
there.
cost $50.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we were expensing everything anyway, right? Or did they give us a per diem? Do you remember this?
We had to expense.
Yeah, I
know.
think we had to account for stuff.
Yeah.
But at that time, we were owned by Liberty Broadcasting, and the CEO, Hayne Hip, had a nice apartment on Fifth Avenue or Park or one of the big hoity-toity streets in the Delmonico. And remember, we went there, and there was like this huge apartment, like the elevator just came to that apartment, and there was like a mink coat hanging in the closet, and I can't remember how we drew for who got which bed.
Well, I couldn't sleep because they had the car, the taxis were going.
Yeah, it was
all night.
noisy.
And we
It
got
was-
in on the red eye.
Right.
And we had to be, and the cab driver raced and I was like, slow down.
Yeah, you were like white as a sheet. We're racing through town, and of course the cab driver's
Racing
not
through Queens.
speaking any English. And then I just don't see how it all actually worked, because I think we just had paperwork, and we had to go to NBC, to Rockefeller Center, and sign in or something, and then down to the Today Show. They were just wrapping up. I think Matt Lauer was doing the news.
That's right. He talked to us for some time behind the scenes.
And they made us up, remember? And they pressed our suits and got us all, prim and proper for the air. And then we had 2 takes. Remember that? You just sat down.
It was a couple of takes, and he's much better. He still is. I sweat those out because I don't like working with the script. I want to just ad-lib everything.
Yeah, they didn't want us doing that, And then, like you said, we had a whole day in New York. Remember, it was driving rain, and you wanted to sightsee. And I'm like, all right, here we go. And so we marched through Times Square and down to the public library and up and down and all around.
Yes.
And we did have, I think we had $100 lunch. We ate a good lunch in New York.
We ate a good lunch, and had quite a bar tab. No, we didn't. I remember you stopped somewhere to see. You wanted to see something on Vanderbilt County at the library.
Yeah, we went to the library, and
Believe it, it's true. We went to the library.
This is a riveting account of a trip to New York. Well, we were at the library for the afternoon, and then you remember the punchline to the story. We got back. Those promos never ran. I never saw any of them on our air.
I tried to find some of the outtakes because they were funny.
Yeah.
Roker was just on and
polished. And here we are like deer in the headlights.
We'd been up all night.
But we lived to tell. And then another adventure that I always like retelling is when you were getting your pilot's license.
Right.
And at about that time. And so then when it came time, you invited me to go flying. And the first time we went, it was windy. Do you remember that?
Yes,
it was
I
like
do
40
remember.
mile an hour winds, and I thought, well, there's no way he'll fly.
There was some tire fire in Posey County, and
Right.
there was they had
the column of
pollution up to 3,000 feet.
So naturally, we flew right
wanted to
into it.
drive, right into a tire fire.
It was great, though. You were a great pilot. I remember you had to do a crosswind landing coming in, and it was one of the very few times I'd ever heard you not say a word. And I thought, man, we're in trouble now. You were yak, yak, yak. And then all of a sudden, boy, it was all no fun and games.
It was a windy day. But
Yeah.
we got to use, we kind of felt cool. We got to use the main runway. They didn't, because it was pretty windy.
Yeah,
So
we're holding up the Delta and American commuter flights out there, to land our puddle jumper. But yeah, I'd always admired that and that's another thing. See, you talk sports, you play great golf, you can fly, and you got your hair. I mean, you got it all.
I'd like to get back. I can only afford one hobby right now. It's golf. But
Yeah.
my wife wants me to get back into flying, but something will have to get.
That well,
Because I'm poor, everybody.
that's right. And then another time, you were always close with our weather spotters. We had storm team spotters then. There was a whole group around the
We
tri-state.
have 2 or 3 in every county.
Just
or
about,
just
when we were at our peak.
And we still have folks that
And
email us in.
You had taken Alan Toomey, our weekend guy, who was a character and worth a whole podcast on his own, to go up to Allendale, right, to barbecue
Allendale.
or something.
Yeah, to Bud and Becky Coomer's house.
Yeah, and the trip up was fine, but what happened on the trip back?
Well, on the trip back, it was in July, in the late 90s. Well, I didn't have much visibility, and we were safe and vectored in, but Toomey, who was a man.
You say that now, right?
He was very quiet, and we were at about 3,000 feet, and he goes, "This is not a good time. Do you know what you're doing?" He couldn't see Owensville, and I was having a little fun. I go, I think so, but Evansville, you towered, and they vectored us in, and we were fine, but. He didn't talk to me for a couple weeks after that.
But he talked about the incident.
He
Byron
talked
almost
about,
killed me up there. Yeah,
it was great to know he was a believer after that because he was looking around and.
You mean a believer in God, in
yeah,
faith, not
right,
necessarily
yes,
in you.
And I mean that respect. But he was gone now. But he was quite a character. And the reason we left so late, we just kept talking. So
yeah. And another adventure I can remember that you were involved in somewhat deeply is we used to play practical jokes here.
Oh yeah.
Before we got caught, there were quite a few.
Before there
things.
was all these rules and
Right,
handbooks.
Right. But you had put a political sticker. We won't mention parties or affiliation. Doesn't matter now anyway. But on somebody's car who was quite opposite politically.
Right.
And the ensuing investigation here was
like Watergate too.
It really was. But you skated, didn't you?
I did, but I got blamed for some things I did.
We blame you for a lot of things. You're an easy target. Why do you think that is?
I can roll with it. So I give and I have to take. I think one of the funniest stories, you weren't here, but it was probably 20 years ago. They had tied me to the pole out there, the flagpole with duct tape. It was about 10 of the guys that had enough. And what they also used to do is
was Fetch involved in this?
Mike Fetch, Fetch was involved.
Yes.
And then I'd leave my keys. I had an older car at the time. I'd leave the key, and they would move it up to Wiki, and they'd take it down to Fulton and to Lloyd. I go, I got a school to go to, so I had to walk all the way down to Fulton to Lloyd to get my car because it'd be on the tower cam. So that's the kind of stuff.
Yeah, and
a lot of camaraderie.
They would do that while you were on the air, and then they would point the
would
camera,
move
and
the
you were like,
car,
there's my car, and that's Nut Club Field.
Take stuff out of my vehicle, take golf balls out of my bag. I mean, just a lot of fun stuff.
So how did you get in golf? I mean, did you go to Purdue on a scholarship or something?
No, and I'm not.
You weren't an
very
Evans
pedestrian.
Scholars or anything like that. Okay.
I've been golfing since I was about 12 years old. I used to caddy for my grandfather, my uncle, and my dad, and so that's just how I learned the game. You learned as a caddy back then, and I say this lovingly, my dad's gone now, that when you got invited, if you were 12, my dad would let me hit a few balls, and so you take the game up that way. But you had to learn to caddy first. And I think you learned a lot from how people interact with one another, how they control their temper. And my dad was very even-tempered. And so I just treated it as a hobby. So that's how I learned it. And I had about, when Evan was growing up and we were doing Little League and stuff, I didn't play that much. But my wife and I play a lot now. So.
Yeah, I know. I see it all the time, and you're good. I mean, you're kind of sandbagging here. You're really a good golfer, right?
Now, I haven't won any trophies or anything like that.
I don't know what this means, but what's your handicap?
My handicap's probably about a 10 or 11. So.
And what's Tiger Woods's, just for comparison?
0.
Okay. But still pretty good, and of course that's a great thing here for the station because you go out sometimes with clients and they have events, and you're usually one of the designated golfers. You and our program director and a couple others. So
Mike Blake, when you play golf with him, it's a 6-hour round, 4 to play, and then 2 hours for him to talk to all the
right. Well, I think you and I golf with Mike Blake at Fendrick. Do you remember this?
Sure,
and I'm a terrible golfer, by the way.
You don't play.
I don't play, and I had kids instead of clubs. But we got out there. You remember what happened, don't you?
Did Mike say take some lessons?
He did. He absolutely. But before that happened, we were like comped everything. They're like, "Oh, it's Mike Blake. Just take one of them cards,
money was
any
no
of them you
good.
want." Yeah, and Mike was working the room, and yeah, we were somewhere in the back, whatever, and I was just hitting clouds of dust and couldn't do anything. And he came over and put his arm around me and he said, "Treat yourself." Do you remember that?
Sell your clubs.
Treat yourself to some lessons. And I never did treat myself
He's
to
quite a
lessons.
character on the golf course, and he's never on the cart path. I go, they invented the cart path. You can't be it. He's always off road. He's quite a character to play with.
But that's a great thing too. With being here this long, we have deep friendships, and
That's what I think so great about 14. We really is. There's a lot of camaraderie.
Yeah.
I got to work with Dan for a number of years, so I mean, it just really, if the people you like, you love working with, and then you obviously have to be serious during severe weather, and you can kind of, you can get a lot done if the people you work, you don't have to avoid. I've just been very lucky, especially with you and the folks I've worked with on the air and the guys behind the scenes, folks behind the scenes.
Who would have ever thought that if we stuck it out long enough, we would become like the elder statesman, like people look up to us, for answers. I guess they do. Maybe I'm fooling myself, but because I think about that, like when we came in, the people that were our age, who would have been around 59, 60, something like that. You didn't approach them, I mean, they were like, oh, those old guys and women. Well, there weren't any 60-year-old women here, but definitely men. They were just kind of, you just kind of cast respect and didn't talk to them.
Well, I always, yourself included, Dan got me off to a good start because he was a laid-back guy. He's 10 years older than me, and he got me out, and I think that was helpful because it can be intimidating. You're still learning on the job. So,
and I have nothing but praise and gratefulness for all the people I work with who were much older than me, starting out, and then we stayed together, and it's we really had a great run here. Looking forward to, of course, more run, right?
Sure. Hoping for 30, a quieter, severe weather season.
Well, yes, that would be good too.
And
on a future podcast, we'll talk weather if you really want to. But since this is Inside Look, I wanted to let people know what I have to put up with every day when we talk to each other. So
I've been seeing you more without all the, rough weather, so it's been kind of nice.
I know. We actually are just social. We're not in here saying, Byron, who's under a warning now? So that's the best way to be. I appreciate you doing
Thanks
this,
for
Byron.
having me,
You're always busy, and look for Byron out on your favorite golf course, airport, or our coming parade out there too. Anything else coming up that you want to plug or point out?
Well, as we go into schools, one of the things we talked about, I got kind of thrown into these kids out at St. Philip's, 17 inches of snow. We got 3. Now I kind of want that to hit.
Yeah, you're on the board. I'm thinking, and I forecast, I think I guessed 5. Yeah, I'm going to bust. It's like blackjack,
Well, you never know. In 2004, we got 22 inches, and then after that, we never got anything.
Yeah, not a flake. So, it was great having a little snow out there, though. Get everybody.
A little appetizer.
Yeah, a little holiday spirit. This has been Inside Look with Byron Douglas. Thanks for watching.